What episode is this? Hey there, everybody. Episode 117. Today we get into a general check-in, how we're doing, dealing with injuries, sicknesses, things like that, but also some of the latest studies on metformin and some of the longevity supplements that have been touted out there, kind of break down some of the science and things that are happening. And then we get to some questions from our community around training around injury, performance and increased workout capacities and how you actually kind of work around those different areas. So a great episode today. Tune in. Really excited to have you listen to it and tune in again for one next week. Thanks all.
You know that there has had to have been some sacrifice, whether it's time or nutrition or whatever it is.
Recording of myself talking about having a relationship with my chest.
I'm Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Health Podcast.
And it doesn't matter, but we can do whatever you want to.
Yo, welcome back to the podcast. I mean, why you give me a hard time?
I'm not giving you a hard time. It's just, I was so confused. I'm like, what happened? Like, you just stopped in the middle of like about to start. You're like, and then you're like everything froze. My internet died. Is Ben dying? Like I went through all these different scenarios in my head.
Just keeping you guessing, keeping you on your toes.
So welcome.
Glad you're alive. Yes, I am alive. Welcome to today's episode. What's up, dude?
Listen, man, life is good. I was sick yesterday, but it looks like it was only a 48-hour type of bug or flu. But like, I will tell you, it's so demoralizing because I just got off of my back killing me, get over my back tweak. And then all of a sudden I get sick again. So it's like been like 2 weeks of not being like fully up to my capacity. And then you just go through all these like whole things. You're like, man, I suck. I'm losing all my muscle.
I just suck at everything. It's like I'm being able to train for 1 day. Suck at everything.
Like I'm just a terrible person, but obviously that's not the case and you get right back into it. But, I'm feeling a lot better today than I was yesterday. I literally got into work, spent maybe 30 minutes here and I went back home and I slept, I just was just dog, felt like dog yesterday, but no, things have been good. Training's been good. Work has been great. Everything is actually going really well. My back is pretty much recovered from the tweak. But I will say that my family finally, Erin really likes DDP Yoga, and the kids like it. So we're actually converting. Remember in the basement of my house, there's like that storage room I had that was kind of tucked away in the back. Anyways, I'm converting that to an actual DDP yoga room. So I'll be doing that with my fam and kids. I don't know how I'm going to fit that into.
Just everybody go back to the podcast about 2 episodes ago where I was like, you're going to turn something into a yoga studio.
That's right.
Here we are.
There it is. By the way, it wasn't me doing it. Aaron is the one that came to that conclusion. So
interesting.
I just want to put that out there. And I feel like I hit a whole new relationship level. There was so me, I kind of spontaneously order things and don't necessarily
doesn't sound like you at all.
Don't actually go through approval processes and things like that. But I have started to do that a lot more now. And it's really because, for me, it's just, I don't think about it. I just go and do it and I move forward and I just, I'm dealing with a lot of stuff at the same time. And, but the other day, Erin's like, do you need anything more for the gym? She's like, you should order some stuff if you need it. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, no, I think I'm good. But I mean, now my brain's thinking, I'm like, what else do I need? Like, what do I?
So you're like almost like, are you saying that I do need something? Like I could definitely
miss something. Is like my gym inadequate? Like what's going on here? Like I take offense. But no, I mean, it's obviously good to have that type of relationship with good communication. I will say that I'm sad the DeLorean is now in the shop for the foreseeable future. I am going crazy on this thing, which is awesome. So I'm doing an LS3 swap with the engine, and it's gonna be supercharged. And it
absolutely 100% unnecessary, but good. I'm here for it.
700 plus horsepower in a DeLorean. It's actually requires a whole new chassis, but I'm getting the chassis for free, which is cool because I just put a new chassis in last year. So it's just an upgraded chassis that I'm getting for cost and for free. And they also are adding a bunch of other stuff. So I'm getting a security system put onto it, like an alarm system, but it also comes with a technology upgrade package where the gull-wing doors, they automatically open for you now too. So all the gull-wing doors will automatically open, and they got a sound adjuster on the muffler system. So it'll automatically, I can go from like being super loud and obnoxious to being quiet in my neighborhood. I'm really excited about this. They're redoing all the electrical so that my fuse box will be moved into the frunk. But my DeLorean's going through a bunch of stuff right now, so it's gonna be great. But yeah.
When do you get it back?
He promises me by spring. So it should be by the time, it should be around the May, February, March, or March, April, May timeframe. I'm hoping earlier the better, but he's assuring me he's already working on it. He's already got the team, building it out and everything. He's got the parts. So I think it's going to happen, which is great.
Cool. Good. That's exciting. Absolutely unnecessary, but I mean, like I said, I support it 100%.
Listen, that's my baby, right? That's my baby. So, yes. I gotta keep investing in your baby.
Good.
How are you doing, dude?
I'm doing good. And you know actually what I did today? Because I was like, well, Dave's going to ask me what's going on. And every time I'm like, what is going on? I actually made a list of stuff that is going on. So for anybody who doesn't know, every Friday, whenever I do the group check-ins, I use Post-it notes and just write down. And then I do a video at the end. So I've just used the Post-it notes to see what's going on with me. So main things that are going on in my life. Phoenix, just finalized numbers for Phoenix and booked the Airbnbs. Finalized that this morning. So we have currently a total of 45 people. Which is an absolutely insane number of people to try and coordinate an event for, but I'm definitely up for the challenge. And I had a couple of conversations yesterday about it. And everyone's like, how are you going to manage that many people? I was like, well, the first event we had like 6 people. And then whenever I had 13 people, I was like, oh, that's a lot. And then whenever I had 25 people, I was like, how am I going to manage that? And I've been able to do it every single time. So it's going to be a challenge, but I'm looking forward to it. So we sort of get into the weeds of finalizing the prep and plans for that. Have a call with a mobility coach. Something that people have kept asking for is somebody who can look after their mobility. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm not a mobile person by any stretch of the imagination. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a mobility coach on board, which will mean there'll be me, there will be a mobility coach, there'll be Kira, mindset coach, Sean, breathwork coach, and then obviously Travis to do the programming and just come on and be a coach, and Adam, #not a coach. So I feel like I'm growing a team. I don't know if I'm doing this on purpose or by accident, but it's definitely happening.
It happens like this.
It's happening, which is cool. It's cool for me. Big news, two items of big news, both this morning, 1st of November, and yesterday, obviously 31st of October. I was 231 pounds. So you told me to get to 231 pounds and then we'll be able to reassess where we're at. Now, that's a spoiler alert for you for doing my check-in tomorrow, but both days it said 105 kilos, which transfers to pounds is 231. On top of that, pressed the 110 pound kilo dumbbells shoulder press yesterday for 4 reps. Now, I did have Ryan spot me to get it up. I say it was funny because we were recording some content for YouTube, and I was like, right, Ryan, I've been holding out this day for 2 weeks. I know I'm stronger when you're here with me and you've got a camera point in my face. So I need you to do that. Don't let me down. But also, I might need a spot to help me get up. So I need you to be 2 people in one here. And I absolutely nailed both. So yeah, got those 4 reps. That was heavy, but I'm going to say I wanted to do it for a while. It's probably been about 3 weeks, but tick that box off. So that's good. Other than that, just regular work things, managing clients, doing other bits and pieces. Food, I'm actually finding easy to eat 3,800 calories. A weight's doing what we needed to do. I feel strong. I feel good. No complaints, dude.
So listen, let me ask you a serious question here right now. So we might as well just do our check-in right here as we go through. But
okay.
So you're at 231 pounds, roughly.
Heaviest I've ever been in my entire life.
Highest you've ever been in your entire life, which we're definitely in uncharted territory here right now, right? But you're pushing some serious weight right now, and you're PRing like crazy. You know what's going to happen when you start to cut, which is going to be, less calories, less power, maybe some slight increases in gains, but probably more so, staying the same as you do kind of a little bit of a cut. Are you set on, and I said I value 230. So, this is purely discussion. Are you set on doing a bit of a mini cut, and then kind of going up from there? Or do you want to keep pushing it, past, because think about it. We're going into November, which you got Thanksgiving, you got Christmas, you got New Year's.
My birthday.
obviously your birthday. I got it on my calendar.
Yeah.
But you have these big events coming up right now, and I mean, you're not going out in the beach and things like that. Would you consider pushing through to the new year, and then new year we start a little bit of a mini cut?
Well, this was my thought process.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm open to have the conversation because, as my coach, it's up to you. I was thinking that from New Year's, it's probably about 8 weeks until the Phoenix event. I feel like I would like to be leaner than I am now at the Phoenix event. I don't feel like I need to be like super shredded, but I would definitely like to be leaner than I am now.
Yeah.
So I think that I'm happy to push up until the new year, and then we can reassess there and do a bit of a cut coming into that.
That's awesome. I have a vacation plan too that I gotta tell you about that we're planning for next year. So I want to be ready to go for that. So I'll be probably in the same boat, starting to do a bit of a cut, as we go into that as well. So I think I want to say it's in May. So I definitely want to be.
Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll get just the Google. I was like, the next goal in my head is 110 pounds, which is 242, or 110 kilos, which is 242 and a half pounds. I'm like, maybe I'll just want to get to that, and I just want to stay there. Like,
yeah. I mean, what we're doing now, obviously, with what you've been able to accomplish. I mean, you're obviously increasing in strength, and we know this because you're increasing in weights, right? And so you have that as a major thing where we're adding as much possible mass as we possibly can because we're sitting in a nice surplus. We can definitely cut at any time. You just don't want to look at possibly right now your body's in a muscle building machine, right? You want to keep going there.
Yes. I will add to this just to, I guess, caveat, regardless of my birthday or Thanksgiving or New Year or Christmas, if you told me that I want to cut, I would still be able to do it. So just be aware of that.
Yep, absolutely.
But I mean, I'll definitely embrace being able to eat 4,000 calories on all of those holidays and occasions. Not one problem, no issues whatsoever.
Okay, sounds good. Well, that's awesome. Well, I mean, again, things are going great. Staying busy. I did want to share before we get into some of the questions. One of the things that I wanted to share is, as new research comes out and new topics come, there are things that I like to share in the breakthrough of medical research and science and things like that. And one of the ones that I have that I've been following quite a long time is metformin, and it's a very popular diabetes drug, most specifically almost always prescribed in type 2 diabetes. And the research, when it initially came out a number of years ago, and this was, I want to say around 2015 or 16, showed that there was a massive increase in longevity by using metformin. So everybody was using metformin on top of, even if you didn't have type 2 diabetes, as a kind of a longevity pill. Okay. Well, newer research came out that kind of looked at the data, but also did new studies that showed that metformin was negligible when it came to longevity and when it came to longevity. So basically disproved that metformin was a longevity pill. And on top of that, it also had shown possible ways that it may reduce your ability to gain muscle as fast. So there was two pieces there that I really didn't like from the studies, which was, one, obviously the muscle building piece is something that I don't want to
anything that takes away from any amount of muscle that can be built, we're not interested in.
Correct. And then the second part was, well, maybe it really didn't have an effect, on longevity. Well, they've done a lot more studies on this since then, and some of the results are starting to come out. And there's new research that is actually showing that metformin does actually increase lifespan, and that it actually protects against a lot of neurologic disorders, and it's more neuroprotective as you start to look at when you age. So Alzheimer's and dementia, those types of things. It's looking like it has a pretty massive impact in protecting against those. And they did a really massive study on it. included 12,220 Kaiser Permanente members who stopped metformin early with normal kidney function, and 29,126 routine metformin users. And they basically showed that those that stopped taking metformin had a much higher probability and chance of developing dementia and or other neurological disorders versus those that stayed on metformin. So it definitely appears to have a substantial amount of neuroprotective effects, but also in some of the latest studies, this is from SciTech Daily, and it said researchers have found that metformin, a commonly prescribed drug for type 2 diabetes, can extend lifespan in C. elegans, a model organism. The drug achieves this by stimulating the production of either ether lipids, a component of cell membranes. Studies in C. elegans revealed that enhancing the production of these lipids, whether through drug interventions or by altering genes, results in a much longer lifespan. While these findings are promising, further studies on humans are needed to determine the implications for the human health side. So, again, when you look at this in comparison, they're doing it obviously not on humans, but metformin is one of the most widely prescribed, safest medicines that are out there today to take, and is like literally, if you have type 2 diabetes, you're instantly getting put on metformin, period. So, I mean, it's, being used by millions and millions and millions of people every single day. And it seems to have a longevity impact, which is really interesting. So I've actually been on metformin for a long time. And when the studies came out on the muscle inhibiting effects, I talked to my doctor, who also happens to be a bodybuilder, by the way. And he's like, listen, dude, I take metformin and I'm fine. And he's like, he pulls out his muscle and he doesn't flex. I'm like, shit, you're right. He's good. He's good. And so, you have to take these for what they are. We don't know what all of these drugs do to our bodies, both short, mid, long term. And that's why, I get conversations all the time in the Hacking Your Health group, like around SARMs and, things like that. And, you look at the studies of those and they're very limited and very limited in the sense of their use. And most specifically, there's no middle or long-term research on like the impact of SARMs. Is it cancer producing? Does it cause dementia? So you got to be really, really, really careful on the things that you take, even from a supplementation perspective. There's a lot of supplements that came out, both in the 2015 and above, that showed it increased cancer chances and all of these other areas. So it's all about balancing it out and not going overboard with things. Some of the staple things that we know: creatine, very safe, long-term use for both brain and for body. Fish oils, one of probably the best supplements that you can possibly use for longevity, lubrication of joints and muscles, brain development and activity. There's so many pros and cons, or pros, no cons, to the fish oil side. And then you start looking at some of the things like statins, which, were supposed to be the savior for, high cholesterol and imbalances with, LDL and HDLs. And it turns out statins, are probably actually hurting you in long-term use. So, you have to be really careful on the things that you're putting into your body, and know that these research components are always evolving into things that may be good or bad. However, I will say with metformin, still seems to be very, very promising. I've listened to a lot of folks talk about it. Dr. Attia from The Drive, Huberman, Dr. Elaine Norton. I've heard all of these different researchers, go through the data, talk through kind of the different topics and pieces. And what they'll all tell you is that it's very much still undetermined, this field. But these two latest studies that came out, one around the longevity aspects, but the second around it's protection against neuro disorders. I'm a pretty big fan of it, and something that I would probably recommend to folks. Obviously, it's a prescription. You need to talk to your doctor about that, but very easy to get, even if you don't have type 2 diabetes. It's one of the most widely prescribed medicines out there. So something to consider as you're looking at your supplement stack and things like that. And as new research comes out, we'll definitely keep you posted. But one of the ones that I see as being probably one of the more promising ones out there to protect against, I'm obviously terrified of getting dementia and Alzheimer's and those types of things as I age. So anything that's going to protect against that, as well as help me live longer, I'm definitely down for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing about anything that you're going to take or supplementize or whatever is, number one, do your own research. Number two, realize that everybody, how they respond to things is completely different. And I think the third thing, and I'll credit Jason for this, like he says that the way he tests whether he feels the benefit of something is he takes it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, or whatever it is, and then he stops, and then he tries to work out. Then does he notice the difference then after that? And I think that's a pretty good way to test things out.
Yeah, I mean, how does it impact you? Look at your stats, look at your baselines, look at your heart rate variability, your resting heart rate, looking how fast you recover. These are all things. I take a peptide called tesamorelin / ipamorelin, which is a peptide for releasing natural production of IGF-1 or human growth hormone. And if you look at the studies on HGH specifically, you got to be careful with that, especially the manufactured human growth hormones, because you're kind of burning the candle from both sides. Whereas my IGF-1 levels are on the lower side of the spectrum when it comes to my age, as was my testosterone. So I do more natural ways of secreting human growth hormone through my body, and there's some really good studies on the longevity aspects of that. Again, within normal ranges, I'm not going super high. But I can tell you that, with tesamorelin and ipamorelin from a peptide perspective, these are branched chain amino acids that are essentially instruction sets to tell your body to release, human growth hormone. And so with that specifically, when I started taking that, I noticed my recovery shot up substantially faster. I wasn't sore as much. I felt like I could sleep better. Those types of things can make a huge impact if you're noticing the differences, maybe not immediately, but within a month or two of actual use.
Yeah, I think back to what you said just initially there, like the thing about it is you need to have something to compare it to. So knowing what your average resting heart rate is, or knowing what your recovery is, or knowing what your blood markers are, because once you start to introduce these things, can you actually physically look at something and go, this is improving or not improving those things, even down to, fucking fish oils, like anything like that, you can definitely see in blood work or other things, but you need to have that baseline and come back to everything that we said about blood work and making sure you get it done, regardless of if you're looking at testosterone or what. Like, I think everybody should have a recent blood panel, or at least one, so they know they have something compared to, because there's no point going, oh yeah, I'm going to take control of my health and train for a year and do all these things, but not have anything specific to look back on to see whether you've actually made improvements or not.
Yeah, and one last thing I forgot to mention on the metformin too, is that there was also a study that came out recently. It was the beginning of October, actually, on metformin, that showed substantial promise and direct correlation and causation to slowing skin cancer development based on how the cells regenerate. So, again, multiple studies coming out really showing the benefits with nearly no side effects. The only side effects that are really reported with metformin, when you first start taking it, it's typically 2 pills a day that you take, and it's usually in the evening before dinner, and kind of blunts the glucose spikes and helps get keep in control like insulin secretion and your insulin levels, and keeping more of a balanced glucose environment in your body. But what will happen is they'll typically start you off on 1 pill a day, and you're going to have some GI issues at first. So some diarrhea, using the bathroom more frequently, gas is reported. And that usually subsides after, a few weeks or a month of use. And then you move to 2 pills and kind of repeat that process. I've used it now for going on 2.5 years. And I don't have any issues as far as that's concerned at all. And I've never had any side effects with it, but I have noticed improvements in my LDL and HDL balance, as well as my spikes in insulin as I go through it. So, again, not saying it's for you. Definitely do your research, but metformin. So the two leading, there's three leading longevity supplements out there right now that are like the 3 most prominent. One of them being metformin, the second one being rapamycin, which again is prescribed. You take 2 pills once a week, basically. I take that as well as NAD, or the precursors, which are NNM or NR. Basically, your body will convert those to NAD production, which is how your body converts chemical energy into what we call ATP, which is energy in cell production. So as we get older, our ATP production goes down. with supplementation of NAD, ATP production stays the same or increases, thus giving us larger lifespans. So a lot of great research on those three things. But rapamycin is another good one that has been shown to have some major impact towards high levels of extended lifespan. So they've done testing in dogs, mice, all have increased lifespans, have done it in humans as well, showing that, but it's hard to get, it's hard to get the long-term studies when they're working on, you have to span 20, 30, 40, 50 years to get that data. You just don't have all of that yet as things come out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like we've talked on a number of times, if you don't live to be 167 years old, then I don't know what the fuck we're going to do.
Right. Exactly right.
Right. So I think we'll get back. Last week, obviously, we did some questions that were submitted by the team. I think we'll get back into doing that. I think we covered entrepreneurship and personal growth last time. Other topics are fitness management and injury prevention, nutrition, supplementation and lifestyle, or motivation, consistency, and long-term goals. Your choice.
Well, I would like to do injury prevention. I think that's a big one.
Yeah, I think that's probably apt. So let me see. Here we go.
I was eating a pretzel.
No, it's okay. I'm just trying to pull up so I can see who actually asked the questions as well. I think I know just by the I know by the question. Right. So how would you approach multiple injuries or ailments when lifting? What's your general recommendations to maximize gains and no further injury? Now, I'll say I haven't had many injuries in my entire training coaching time myself. Obviously, my shoulder has been a big problem, which I will say. And I just had a call with a client. I was talking about he had a shoulder injury. It's tangent, but guess related. He was talking about pressing overhead, and obviously I haven't pressed anything overhead in about 2 years. And I was like, it's good to see that you can still build the strength to do that thing by not actually doing that thing. So yeah, shoulder injury. Sorry, carry on. Over to you.
Well, I would say, the biggest thing when you're looking at injury is what is the cause of that injury? What exercise or movement or lifestyle is causing, your injury to occur? Is it a prior injury that is reoccurring? And then how do you work around those, right? And, there are also ways of what is your outcome and goals? Is it to, lose weight and gain muscle? Is it to be powerlifting? There's a lot of different scenarios that go into kind of the course correction that you need for injury prevention. And, the truth of the matter is that, our bodies really don't need a substantial amount of weight to increase muscle mass, right? But we do need volume. And we do need to fatigue the muscles so that it instructs it to build more muscle as we go along. So there are movements that we can do to still build muscle, but also tackle problems or tackle the muscles around it to make it stronger as well. I always use my back as an example of that, which isn't a good example right now because I injured it the other day. But I haven't had a back injury in a year and a half. And, that's because I've been able to build the muscles around the back to be much stronger, to be able to handle, the volume and the intensity and the weights that I'm pushing through it. But there's also movements that I just won't do anymore because I know it has a high probability of causing, issues with my shoulder, for example, my right shoulder. I can go right now, and if you're looking on the live view here on YouTube, that right when I push in between here, I can feel where the injury is at. There's scar tissue there. There's definitely, things here that aren't right in between my shoulder that I don't have over here at all. So I know that this is injured. I know this is bad, but, it's only though when I cause a lot of strain on my shoulders in a certain position that it does actually do that. And that most specifically is my barbell bench press. I will never do barbell bench press ever again in my life.
I'm going to put it in your new program.
All right, Ben, I'm injured again. Another couple weeks off. But there are ways around it. For example, when you're doing barbell bench press, your shoulders are really far out, and you have to tuck, your elbows in to go and do it. So when you're pushing a lot of strain on that exact spot that I tear all the time. Whereas, if I'm using something like a kabuki bar, where it's a modified neutral grip, so I'm angled inward a little bit, it locks my elbows into place, and I reduce the amount of stress that I have on my shoulders. Now, I'm not as powerful on that because I'm taking out, some strain on my shoulders from that, but it's not. But I'm still, at the end of the day, my intent of the bench press isn't to tackle my shoulders; it's to tackle my chest. So, other than it being an ego lift, it has nothing to do with what my gains and my intentions are for that specific muscle group. Using dumbbells, for example, dumbbells are phenomenal. I can control the entire way through where my hands go, and I know if I flare out here, I'm screwed, right? So I don't do that. When I go up, you've ever watched me, in the videos that I post around doing dumbbell bench presses, when I go up, I keep my shoulders tucked in as I come down, and I'm really getting that good stretch, in my chest as I'm coming up and doing it, but I'm not putting a lot of strain on my shoulders. So, there are ways to do certain exercises that move around your ailments without injuring it. But when it happens, the issue that you're going to run into is that if you keep lifting on that same, hurt area, it's going to take much longer to recover, and you're probably doing more damage than good. So you really need to either figure out a way not to specifically tackle that muscle, or do lighter weights so that it gives it time to actually, rebuild and do more volume. I know when I broke my ankle, I couldn't do deadlifts, I couldn't do squats, but I could do leg extensions and leg curls, no problem. So I just did 1 million leg extensions and leg curls. And
it worked. I've seen you checking photos. It definitely worked.
It worked, right? So, there are ways of looking at injury and doing different ones, but at the same time, like, you got to take ego out of the equation. You got to take your PR numbers out of the equation and focus more so on, what's going to help you build muscle, what's going to help you, go stronger without having to deal with a lot of injuries as you go along with it.
Yes, agree. My comments would be, number one, understand what your goal is. If your goal is fat loss, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but you don't have to focus so much on getting super strong. Like, deal with one goal and then deal with the other. Second thing would be understanding what your body's limitations are. Now, I'm not here to say that we won't challenge those or it's just a case of avoiding certain things. But if you know that a specific movement, like you just said in terms of bench press, is going to give you shit at a certain point in your shoulder, probably best not to do it, but not totally avoid pressing through your chest, because there are other ways to do it. I think, touching on what you're saying about the dumbbells, the good thing about those is they can be at slightly different points. So if you have an issue with your right shoulder and your right elbow needs to be slightly lower than your left elbow, you can do that with a set of dumbbells, but you can't do that with a fixed bar because it's going to be in control. So probably the best thing on that is, number one, understanding what the movement should feel like what muscle you should be moving, like where you should feel it stretch, where you should feel it contract, and understanding that. Second point of that is understanding what your active range is. So like where you can move the muscle and actually still be in control. Bench press is a good example. The way to test it, if you lie on the bench with no weight, put your arms up in the air and just let your shoulders drop. Take your left hand, put it in your right chest. And if you can contract the muscle, like you can contract your chest, then you're probably going to be able to be in control in that. If your shoulder's too far back and you can't contract through that, you're probably going to feel pressure through your shoulder. Not a good idea to have a heavy dumbbell on the bottom of that, because yes, you probably can press it, but you're going to get a lot of shit through your shoulder, and your chest should be able to take more work than or more effort or more weight than your shoulder. So be able to test it out like that. If you are injured, the thing about it is understanding you can still train the majority of muscle groups, just doing it in a slightly different way. So like you said, with being injured through your ankle, you couldn't do specific things, but you could still train quads and hamstrings because you had the equipment available. Even with shoulders, like I've just touched on, for about 2 years, I didn't press anything over my head. Doesn't mean I didn't train shoulders for 2 years. I did fucking endless amounts of side raises, which obviously has helped me get stronger and build muscle in those areas. So it's like understanding, okay, I can't train this muscle in this specific way. What other ways can I do it? And I think understanding that even further is knowing that, number one, you don't need to just do every movement because the internet says you should. Obviously, the big culprits in this are bench press, squat, and deadlift. You don't need to do them if you don't feel comfortable in them, or you don't specifically want to do them for a reason, or they give you shit in some way, shape, or form. Then you don't need to do it. You can train other lifts. The second thing is understanding that every person is different. So if you saw me and Dave do a specific exercise, we're not going to do it in the same way because we're built differently. So find out what works for you. An example for this on me recently was I was doing, after you told me I need to do more incline chest press, I was doing incline on the Smith machine bench press. And there's a certain part of it is just like, this just doesn't feel comfortable through my shoulder. And literally the only thing that I did was slid myself forward. So like my bum was on the seat, slid myself forward, like maybe about 3 or 4 inches, and it was infinitely better. So like understand that you can move in certain things, whether that's with a free weight, a bar, a Smith machine, or machines. Like you need to understand that machines are built for the majority of people, but they're not going to fit everybody. So understand what muscle you should be moving, understand what it feels like to contract that muscle, and then try and replicate that in the specific movement, whether it's machine or whatever else.
Yeah, for me, machines are phenomenal for selecting specific muscle groups and being able to do a full range of motion. And most of them do a good job. But, when you look at body types, I'm 6'4", I'm longer in, my legs than I am in other areas. I have long arms and long legs. Someone I've been actually following a little bit of is, if you're familiar with Sam Sulek.
Yes.
You've seen his stuff?
Yes.
Sam is hilarious. This guy is a massive, huge bodybuilder, but he eats like total garbage. But his philosophy is calories in versus calories out, and as long as he's hitting the protein goals, right? And the guy looks fucking amazing,
Yes.
And he literally his diet is he chugs a thing of
chocolate milk in the morning.
Chocolate milk, in the morning, and then he gets done and he eats like 5 bowls of cereal, and he's
legend.
It's amazing. It's insane, right? You see what he eats all day long, and it's not rice and chicken. It's whatever the heck he wants to. It's pizza. He just eats like total garbage. But the guy's a specimen. I mean, he looks incredible. He's huge.
I wouldn't recommend doing that. He's definitely a one-of-a-kind person. He is enormous. Definitely.
Yes. However, he does have a lot of videos on what he does. And, it's interesting because you look at bodybuilders versus powerlifters, and he does his squats like either mid or at the very end of his workout, because he's like, I don't need to load a ton of weight on my quads if they're already close to being burned out. He's like, I already have done leg extensions. I've done whatever this, I've done that. So, the end is just I don't put a ton of weight on. I just do squats to burn my muscles out the last amount that I possibly can, to get that growth and to get that big pump that you got going on in there. And so, you look at that, and he's not pulling a ton of weight, as he's going through and building all of his areas. And it's funny because he had this one video where he said he hasn't taken a rest day. He just lifts all the time, and has never done a deload. And he said he works out 5 days a week, and he just doesn't ever really stop doing it. And he's never had any injuries or things like that. So it's interesting. I just find him fascinating because he doesn't have injuries, and he just does more lighter weight things to burn and fatigue the muscle out as he goes through. And the guy's obviously enormous, but what you do from a ritual perspective, I mean, if you're hurt and injured, you still want to move around. One of the biggest things that I did to recover my back, and I'll just tell you what I did for my back protocol when I injured my back, was the first 24 to 48 hours, you want to ice it. You want to get inflammation down in that area to stop agitating the rest of the parts over there. After that, heat everything, right? So I had a back harness that has a battery on it. That's a heating pad. I would go and do the sauna twice a day, and I would do the hot tub at night before I went to bed. And I also used peptides, which was TB500, which is used for recovery, and then what was the other one? BBC 157 that I use for repair. And that's isolated, so I'd actually inject a small needle into my back. Actually, Erin would do it, and she's freaking out every time. She's like, "Oh my god, does it hurt?" I'm like, "I didn't even know you put it in there. I'm fine. Like, I'm used to needles. Don't worry." That helped me recover much faster. But you still want to move around. You want to get blood flow to that location. Even though it hurts, don't do anything that is going to cause massive amounts of pain. But if it's uncomfortable, that's okay. You don't want to, be doing a bunch of deadlifts, when your back is hurt. But you do want to stretch it. You do want to move around, and you do want to continue to build that up. And one of the things I will say too is that the DDPY stuff with Diamond Dallas Page Yoga, the mobility pieces that I've gotten out of that has been incredible. How far I'm able to bend down and move, how far I'm able to stretch and really open up. One of my big areas that I'd always go to a masseuse with, a masseuse would be like, hey, your glutes and your hammies are the worst I've ever seen. Like they're just the tightest. And she's like, I'm beating the hell out of it. And it's not even responding to me. It's just like F off, you know, I don't get those comments anymore because I do a lot of stretching now throughout the day to really try to relax those muscles and allow them to not always be in a tensed up state. So my IT band and my glutes and my hammies, most specifically, can cause a lot of issues in the back. It's all like a catastrophic house of cards that fall down because if everything's tight back there, it's pulling on your back. Thus, your back starts to have some major issues. So, you got to look at your whole body as you're going through this and trying to make the right type of program that's going to allow you to be successful.
Yes. The worst that's easy. I mean, what an achievement. But I think I actually was talking to Kyle earlier on, because we were talking about the mobility stuff, and like, while I know it's a thing that I should be doing, and I probably should have been doing for the past 10 years, if I'm like, right, I've got an hour to lift, do I want to spend 15 or 20 minutes doing mobility? Absolutely fucking not. But I do know the benefits of it, and it is something that I definitely will get better at, because yes, okay, while it is cool to lift weight and move in a certain way, how much are we limiting, or how much am I limiting by not actually being fully mobile? I know that doesn't necessarily correlate, but I do think there's a lot to be said for actually being able to move properly and not just move in very specific movement patterns. Like doing a leg extension is absolutely fine, but there's no real mobility involved in it. You just need to be able to get into the machine and move it in a specific way. On that, Mike B has said, warm-ups, what's the deal? ? Stretch, ? Walk, ? Only warm-up sets. What's the best approach?
So the data
doing warm-up sets, it was hilarious up until I changed it not that long ago.
Yeah, no, listen, the concept behind stretching appears to be based on all the research and data. I actually did a big thing on this, and Dr. Lane Norton actually just did a post on this and released all the data. If you're doing normal like stretching, like you would think of, like bending down and you're doing, it does not appear to have any impact whatsoever on the reduction of injury. That doesn't mean it's not helping with mobility. It just means that it's not the end all be all that it was touted to be before you go and work out. What seems to help is more dynamic stretching, i.e. starting off and warming your muscles up prior to actively going to use them. So whether that's shooting a basketball or running on a treadmill for a couple minutes, you're not doing anything super intensive, but getting your body kind of prepped and ready and loose to be able to manage that. So whenever I start to work out now, and I should have taken this advice, a week and a half ago, but starting off with warm-up sets, if I'm doing deadlifts, first maybe stretch my back out a little bit, do some dead hangs, maybe do, some basketball just to kind of warm up a little bit, get my body, temperature up just a little bit. And then from there, put 2 plates on. So I'm only doing, 45s, 145, 145 and another 45. So 100 and whatever.
Do a couple of bicep curls with that weight before you get into your deadlift?
Some bicep curls to start off with. No, but doing your deadlift with that weight, fueling the weight, getting your muscles used to the movement, and then start to slowly add on more and more to feel that weight as you go into your working sets. That appears to be some of the most effective ways to not get injured, but also really warm those muscles up to get to a point where you're lifting heavy weights and getting into your PR areas and stuff like that. So for me, it continues to be kind of a thing that I need to work on for sure. No question about it, but I am really trying to get better with most specifically my hip mobility is one of my very limiting factors, especially on squat, that I need to continuously work on. But things that I can definitely improve on for sure.
I think the thing with warm-ups is, number one, it depends what you're doing, because doing a warm-up for doing deadlifts versus doing a warm-up if you're going to run 10K are two different things. My goal with a warm-up is 2 things. Number one, to get my body actually warm. So you'll notice that regardless of where I train or what I'm doing, I'll always have like a hoodie or a sweater or jumper if you're from somewhere normal, on to actually heat myself up, like to actually warm myself up. So in the name warm up, like actually get my body warm so the blood can flow a little bit better around it. Obviously you can do that from doing a little bit of training, like lighter weights, in terms of like the actual movements and exercises that you're going to do, or you can jump on the bike for 10 minutes, or walk on the treadmill, or walk on do the Stairmaster or whatever it is, that you just heat your body up. I would say probably that is a good thing to do for people who train early in the morning, because by the time I've trained, I've been up and about and I've been, walking about, I've been moving. So like my body is used to like actual movement. Obviously, if you get up first thing and you just go and start to train, like your body's been asleep. So you need to maybe do a little bit more in terms of that. But generally, like I just use warm-up sets probably more than anything else. I'll always do more at the beginning of my workout than I do as I go through it, just simply for the reason of actually getting myself warm. In terms of the stretch, like I'll also incorporate that a little bit in terms of the warm-up sets that I do. So if we use dumbbell bench press for an example, when I'm using the lighter weights, I won't have a problem like going past what my active range through my chest is. So I'll feel a stretch through my chest and actually just sit there for a while, just to like go beyond that to actually feel the stretch and sort of see. Like I can do it now and I feel like it's a little bit tight because I trained chest yesterday. So that gives me an understanding of how I'm going to feel in the coming sets. The warm-up sets are going to be beneficial in terms of they will get your body, I guess, your central nervous system more specifically switched on, for want of a better phrase, to knowing what is to come. So there's no point going in and just doing, okay, right, I'm going to do 300-pound squat, just putting 300-pound in the bar and doing a squat. Probably a little bit more beneficial of doing some sort of movement to go, okay, right, our body's going, right, we're going to do squats now. So I'll do, there's no real hard and fast way, but generally, we talked about this the other day in the YouTube video I recorded with Ram. We mentioned warm-up sets, and I was just going through I was actually doing the dumbbell shoulder press, and I was like, right, well, I'm at about 50% of my weight that I want to work with right now, and I did about 6 reps. As I go up in weight and get closer to what my working weight is, I'm going to do less reps. So I'll do 50 or 60% of my working weight. I'll do 6 reps, and then I'll do 70% of my working weight. I'll do 4 reps, and then I'll do 80 or 85% of what my working weight is, and I'll do 2 or 3 reps. I'll do 90 and potentially 95%, depending on how I'm feeling, just to make sure that my body's able to handle the load. And I'll do maybe 1 rep or 2 reps, absolute maximum, because I want to be good to go for my working sets, and I don't want to be fatigued going into it. I'll not spend a lot of time between these sets. I'll literally pick up the dumbbells, do the set, put them back, go and get the other set, do them, come back. And then whenever I finish my last working set and move into my warm-up set, I'll take a regular rest period, and then I'll go from there. So that is how I would approach warm-up sets. The question was, what's the best approach? I'm not saying that that's the best approach, but it's definitely one that works for me. Like I said, moving into the next exercises, I would maybe only do 1 or 2 warm-up sets. So 1, definitely to get body and central nervous system switched on to, okay, right, this is what we're doing now. 2, if it's a bigger compound movement again. So for example, if I went, like I did this yesterday, I went from that into inclined Smith machine. So I did a little bit more because it's a bigger compound movement. But if I had been going from that into lateral raises, I would have done 1 set because my shoulders are already good to go. Yesterday I did full body push. Once I finished the upper body portion, I went then to leg extension, and I went through the same sort of process. I did 50%, I did 6 reps, I did 70%, I did 4 reps, and then I worked up to what my working weight was going to be. So obviously switching from upper body to lower body, it's a completely different set of muscles and muscle group and part of your body. So going back to doing slightly more warm-up sets to sort of make sure you've transitioned over to that is more beneficial. Again, is that best? I don't know, but Mike lives in the fucking desert, so imagine he's probably warmer than I am going into the gym. But that's what I've done for the past almost 10 years.
It's interesting because I think everybody's warm-up routines or ways that their bodies react is probably different across the board. But what is consistent is if you're warmed up and your body is primed for working out, you generally feel better, work better, do better at everything that you're focusing on. So for me, when I went downstairs to work out and where I pulled my back, 1, I could tell I slept funny because I was sore at my back. 2, my glutes and my hammies were not warmed up and they were tight. So all of these things are already going against me when I first start this. So I'm essentially prone for injury at this point, right?
You're like,
and then I go right into it.
Pounds.
Right. And so, the thing with the whole thing that's interesting is the more that I've learned more about listening to my body. As soon as I hurt myself, I stopped, immediately to go and do it. But it's taken me a long time to go and get there. So I think, the biggest recommendation I can give for anybody is injury prevention. Warm yourself up just a little bit beforehand. It can definitely help out quite a bit.
Yeah, agree. I think understanding your body is an important part of it as well. Like knowing what things should and shouldn't feel like, because a lot of people will just do a certain movement and be like, "Oh, this sucks," and it's sore. But sometimes it doesn't need to be. Like, yes, okay, it will suck and it will hurt, but I think there's two different types of actually being in pain. Tom's question is, looking back, what's one thing you got wrong when you started weight training, or a common pitfall you see most beginners make?
Moving too fast with too much weight
Is that
and not getting
for
the form
you,
down.
for you, or for most common?
No, just
Both,
in general.
in
Yeah,
general?
me too. But I mean, just in general. I mean, you know, your biggest thing if you're getting into this is to first establish, you know, form and technique, because if you don't and you start going heavier and heavier and heavier and you have bad form, you know, you're gonna be right in the situation where you're having injury and you're probably most likely gonna fail at it, right? So it's understanding that this is a process that takes time, and then getting into it in a way that allows you to build up on the things that you learn, the foundations. I think is probably the number one most important thing that I see, and plus the second one most important is probably not getting enough sleep.
I think the thing that I see people, the biggest pitfall I see for the majority of people is comparing themselves to people who are at a different stage of their journey. It's easy for people to look at you and go, "Oh, well, I want to be deadlifting 585 pounds," and we're like, "Well, you need to be able to deadlift 200 pounds first, and then 250, and then 300, and then 350, and then 400, and then 450, and then 500." Like, it's a process that takes time. So people trying to rush and think they can skip all the levels whenever it's just it's a time thing more than anything else. And I think that the biggest misconception of all of this is that you can do a lot in a short amount of time and you can like fast forward the progress. And the comment that I had to Bill Plant earlier on, like, this is the only thing that you can't cheat. Like, this is the only thing that you can't fast forward. You need to put the time and the effort and do the work. Like, I can't do the work for you. I can give you the tools, but I'm not, you know, if you're going to deadlift 600 pounds, I can't fucking do that for you. Like, you have to be the one that has done the work to get you to that point. One thing that I got wrong when I started training, I guess listening to the wrong people. The first guy that I remember actually giving me any sort of nutrition advice was a professional bodybuilder. So he was an IFBB pro. And he was like he was the guy that, you know, told me to eat eggs and an avocado for breakfast every morning. Like, that's fucking 1,500 calories in itself. I probably only weighed about 150 pounds. So listening to the wrong people and taking the wrong advice. For myself, it would be not committing to the journey of being uncomfortable with being slightly, I guess, carrying more body fat than I would be comfortable with, like not taking the time to be in that. And I seen someone post recently, like, people in the sort of early phases of their journey shouldn't be too focused on getting absolutely shredded. They should probably spend more time building the muscle and building a solid foundation. And if I look back to my first photo shoot, yes, I was inside out shredded, but there probably wasn't a lot of overall muscle mass. So I would go back and do that slightly differently if I had to do it again.
Yeah, the whole fixation, on losing the weight usually, you know, takes kind of the number one priority, right, for most people, because they want to show, you know, immediate results on slimming down. Whereas, you know, you need to look at it as more of a tapered effect, where you're slowly, very, very slowly losing fat, but also gaining muscle, right? And that process, especially, you know, when you're first starting off, is very possible to do, right? It's you know, your body is going to react very quickly to muscle production. You know, it's what we call kind of like the newbie gains, or the, you know, early starting gains. But, you know, that quickly tapers off, and especially as you get larger, you know, it becomes harder and harder and harder to create a foundation ecosystem of maximizing muscle growth. But most people will just try to drop the weight as fast as possible, and what happens there, you know, is you start to shred muscle as well. You know, your body's like, well, if I'm not using the muscles, you know, to increase weights, and I don't have enough protein to be able to maintain them, then why do I have these in the first place? It's just causing me to have to shed body fat, which I want to keep the most amount of in case I starve for, you know, several months and I need to live off of my body fat. So, you know, your body goes into protection mode and it eats a lot of your muscle. And that's why you look at the studies that are coming out with Ozempic and Moderna, you know, the Wegovy / you know, semaglutide or tirzepatide stuff that's being touted as kind of the miracle drugs. You know, these are GLP-1 receptor, you know, that basically like tells your body that you're full and the brain. And when it's doing that, people don't eat, and especially don't eat copious amounts of protein. So what you're seeing a lot with the studies is that these folks are dropping massive amounts of weight, but a large percentage of that is both bone density and muscle mass, which is not what you want to do. So you have to balance this with, you need to balance this with eating enough food, getting enough calories that your body doesn't go into starvation mode, but also create the ecosystem to allow for muscle building while also dropping the pounds. And if you listen to a couple of podcasts ago, there was an episode that we did, and we talked about how resistance training was better for losing weight, both short, mid, and long term, than cardiovascular work or cardio. And the reason for that is as you add more muscle mass, your calories increase as far as the energy production that your body has to do to maintain that muscle. So the larger you are, think about this too. If you're 400 pounds of just, if you're obese and 400 pounds, the amount of movement that you need to be able to move around with 400 pounds is substantial. So the amount of calories that you need to maintain that is substantial. Same thing for muscle. You increase muscle in order for your body to maintain that muscle, move that muscle around is increased. So, you start to get to a point to where you're able to eat more food and still lose weight and continue to build muscle. That's the best desired result, where you're slowly sculpting your body while building the muscle. Then you can get into, once you're comfortable with it, more of what we're doing, obviously, which is more of the caloric surplus, and building a byproduct of a little bit of body fat, but, predominantly muscle as well.
I think
all just a balance.
It is a balance, and it's understanding what the goal at the time is, because I get clients and they're frustrated. They're like, oh, but I'm not progressing on this lift. And I'm like, but our current goal is fat loss. So it's like understanding that there are different phases and different focuses, and being okay with that and being able to separate them. And I think the biggest thing is it just fucking takes time, and that's what people can't get their head around. But like, but I want it yesterday. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, that sucks. You should have started 10 years ago.
Yep. And I wish I would have too. So yeah,
I did.
But
I'm almost at 10 years.
Yeah. I wish I would have spent more time, as a kid and stopped doing this and learning about it. But again, what we're trying to preach here and what we're trying to tell everybody is that, like, this is stuff that's sustainable for the rest of your life. It's a framework that is going to work for you, but it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to take time. I'm not happy where I'm at. I want to continue to grow,
but happier, much happier.
Well, let me rephrase. I'm happy where I'm at now. It's the best I've ever been. It's the best I've ever felt. But I still want to keep going. I don't want to quit. I want to get better, right? I'm not happy with no progress. That's the best.
What I have realized about myself. The thing that I enjoy about the gym the most is the progress. And I have realized across the board, I am addicted to progress. And I definitely can be addicted to worse things.
Yeah, that's right. Out of all the things to be addicted to, I think that's probably the best addiction you could possibly have. But I think that's all the questions we can get for today, right? I think we're out of time. But really appreciate everybody listening today and for the questions. Keep them coming in. One thing I did want to hit on really quick before we go, because the question I got answered was, do you eat before you work out? And that's always a big debate, but typically you have enough glycogen in your body to be able to produce for about an hour. So anything more than that, you're going to, start depleting and eating the fat stores. But I personally, I work out first thing in the morning. I don't eat beforehand. But if I'm working out midday or afternoon or evening, I will definitely, appropriately stack carbohydrates and enough carbs for me to be able to digest that and use that energy production while I'm looking to get the best weights. But if I'm doing a pretty long session, like a 2 or 3 hour session, I will definitely eat.
You're going to have to get those intra-workout Pop-Tarts. You'd be like an hour.
I've done that before. Intra-workout Pop-Tarts, you name it, whatever you can get those calories in, most specifically the sugars to spike glucose to get those to your muscles and flood your muscles with energy. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be hurting yourself if you're doing fasted. There's some studies that show, better fat loss with that. But at the same time, are you actually outputting enough energy to get a good workout to be able to grow as much as you possibly can? And a lot of times, if you don't have enough, in the reserve, you're not going to be able to do that. So it's a bit debatable, but at the end of the day, I think, general consensus is if it's, before workout, you typically want to eat. Unless it's like super in the morning, it's not going to hurt you.
Well, I definitely do eat, and there's definitely a big part of me that it's like a psychological thing that if I don't eat, I'm like 20% weaker. I will say this, and this is something I have tried, and I will caveat this by saying I did see this on Instagram, the pace of getting all the solid nutritional and fitness information. And I actually talked to Kyle about this a couple of weeks ago. I've seen people have a teaspoon of honey with some rock salt as their pre-workout. And now, while I actually eat, because I train later on in the day, I think if you train first thing in the morning, having that will give you everything you need. Obviously, you get the sort of rapid energy from the honey, and you can use it, and you also get the salt that will also balance out like electrolytes whenever you sort of lose salts through sweat whenever you're training. So if you do train in the morning, you don't want to have a big meal because then you have to wait 45 minutes to an hour to let it digest, blah, 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 blah. I think that's a pretty good shout. I have tried it. I mean, I also had a pre-workout with it, so I can't say if it was any better or not. But definitely worth giving a shout if you do train early in the morning.
Yep.
Thanks for listening.
Well,
see you next week.
See you, everybody. Bye.